Tonight's story is called Black Antler Woods, written by Dead Air. So turn the lights off, get comfortable, and enjoy the tape. The county says there were 7 men working the Black Antler site that night. That's a lie. There were 8. You can see him in the photographs. The problem is, nobody remembers hiring him. My name is Daniel Mercer. From 2011 to 2018, I worked for a private land clearing company called North Valley Forestry. Calling us lumberjacks would have been generous. We weren't. We were cleanup. Whenever a developer bought a few hundred acres of woodland and needed everything flattened before construction started, companies like ours got called. We cut access roads, removed trees, pulled stumps, cleared abandoned structures. Sometimes we found old cars, sometimes appliances. Once, outside Duluth, we found an entire school bus buried beneath 6 feet of dirt. Nobody knew how it got there. My supervisor told us to fill the hole. We did. That's the kind of company North Valley was. You didn't ask questions because questions slowed down the job, and slowing down the job meant overtime. Most of us would have buried a UFO if management promised time and a half. Black Antler Woods was supposed to be another 3-night contract. 217 acres. Privately owned forest. No nearby residences. The developer wanted an access road cut through the centre before the survey crew arrived Monday morning. Our instructions were simple. Enter Friday evening, establish a temporary site, clear approximately 4 miles. Leave Sunday morning. 7 men were assigned: me, Caleb Morris, Anthony Bell, Greg Harlan, Wesley Pike, Marcus Dean, and our site supervisor, Eric Shaw. I know those names because I still have the original work order. I've looked at it hundreds of times. 7 names, 7 employee identification numbers, 7 emergency contacts, 7 men. But the first photograph from Black Antler shows 8. I didn't notice until years later. None of us did. We arrived shortly after 11 Friday night. The developer wanted the clearing done overnight because environmental inspectors were scheduled to visit the property the following week. Eric told us not to think too hard about that, so we didn't. The forest was thicker than the satellite images suggested. Huge pines, some easily 70 feet tall. The undergrowth was so dense our headlights barely penetrated 10 yards beyond the access trail. There was no moon, no nearby highway, no power lines. Once we shut the trucks off, the darkness felt physical, like something with weight had settled over the hood and was pressing down through the windshield. Caleb joked that somebody should take a picture before we started. He'd recently bought one of those digital cameras with infrared capability. He was obsessed with it. Every job, every stupid thing we did, Caleb photographed it. The first picture shows us dragging Anthony away from the tree line. That's where the story gets difficult, because none of us remembered doing that. According to the camera timestamp, the photograph was taken at 11:17 p.m. We arrived at 11:08, 9 minutes. 9 minutes after arriving at Black Antler Woods, 5 of us were pulling Anthony out of the forest. When police eventually recovered the photographs, they asked what happened. Every surviving member of the crew gave the same answer. Nothing. Nothing happened at 11:17. We unloaded equipment, checked the chainsaws, marked the access route. That's what I remember. But the photograph exists. Anthony is clearly on the ground. His helmet is missing. His legs are dragging, heels carving twin furrows through the mud. Eric has him underneath the arms. I'm holding his left wrist. Marcus is standing behind us. and Anthony appears to be screaming, his mouth stretched wider than a jaw should stretch, the tendons standing out along his throat like cords under his skin. The second photograph was taken 3 minutes later. We're standing around a hole, not a small hole. Something large had been buried beneath the forest. At first, investigators thought it was a concrete foundation. It wasn't. The photograph shows a rectangular opening descending into the earth. Perfect edges, black interior, a blackness that didn't look empty so much as full of something that swallowed the infrared light instead of reflecting it back. Anthony is sitting near the entrance. Eric has one hand on his shoulder. Everyone is looking down, except Anthony. Anthony is looking into the trees. The third photograph was taken at 11:26, 6 minutes later. We're removing something from the hole, a slab, at least 12 feet long, maybe 15. Black stone. No markings visible in the photograph, though later, blown up and contrast corrected, investigators found faint grooves along one edge. Not carved, they said, but worn, the way a stone step wears smooth from centuries of feet. It took 5 men to lift it. According to the images, I don't remember touching it. None of us do. That's important. Because at 11:31, Caleb took the fourth photograph. It's Anthony. Close up. His face is covered in dirt. There's blood underneath his nose, a thin dark line that had already reached his upper lip and begun to dry into the creases at the corner of his mouth. And he's crying. I've known Anthony since high school. I'd seen him break 3 fingers in a hydraulic splitter and finish his shift before going to the hospital. Anthony didn't cry, but in the photograph tears are running down both cheeks, cutting clean, pale tracks through the dirt on his face. His eyes are focused on something behind Caleb. And if you zoom into the reflection of his right eye, there's something standing between the trees. We didn't discover that until much later. The police did. At first, they thought it was another worker, but the proportions were wrong. Too tall, too thin, the kind of thin where the joints look like they're one bad step from folding the wrong way. And there appeared to be something extending upward from its head. Branches. That's what the detective called them. Branches. I think he knew. They weren't. At 11:42 we ran. The 5th photograph is blurry. Caleb must have taken it accidentally. Everyone is moving toward the vehicles. Eric is ahead. Marcus is climbing over a fallen log. Anthony is barely visible near the excavator. The photograph doesn't explain what we're running from, but audio recovered from Caleb's camera does. 11 seconds, that's all. Heavy breathing, someone shouting, branches snapping, and Anthony screaming one sentence. They know we opened it. Then the recording ends. The next photograph was taken at 11:49, 7 minutes later. It shows 2 deer. At least that's what the original police report says. 2 deer. I don't know what detective looked at that photograph and wrote those words. Their bodies were shaped like deer. That's where the similarities ended. The closest animal had no visible pupils. Its eyes were completely white, wet-looking like the whites of a boiled egg. Its jaw extended almost to the base of its neck, unhinged the way you'd never think an animal's jaw could unhinge, the skin at the corners of its mouth split and peeling back in ragged flaps. Dozens of teeth filled its mouth. Not deer teeth, canine teeth, layered, growing over each other, crowding forward in uneven rows like something out of a shark's mouth, some of them broken, some still slick and wet with something that wasn't saliva. The second animal stood behind it. Its antlers were enormous, too large for its skull, heavy enough that the neck beneath them bowed at an angle no living neck should hold, and the skin around its mouth appeared torn, hanging in strips, exposing the muscle and bone underneath, glistening black in the infrared flash. Both animals were facing the camera. Caleb was less than 10 feet away. There's no audio, no video, just the photograph. Then another, 11:50. All 7 of us are visible. That's when investigators discovered the problem. Caleb took the photograph, so he wasn't in it. 7 men are standing in the clearing, meaning there should have been 6. But there are 7. I've studied that photograph. I'm near the center. Eric is behind me. Marcus is kneeling. Greg is holding an axe. Anthony is standing near the left edge. Wesley is behind Eric. And Caleb is behind the camera. Then there's the other man, back right. Reflective vest, work pants, North Valley jacket. He looks terrified, just like us. I don't know him. Nobody knows him. North Valley had no record of him. Facial recognition returned nothing. His fingerprints weren't found on our equipment. But he's wearing our uniform. And in the photograph, he's staring directly behind Caleb. The next image explains why. Anthony took the camera. At least that's what we assume. The photograph shows Caleb. Half of his face fills the left side of the frame. Behind him are the deer. Not 2 anymore, at least 9. Standing upright, some on 4 legs, some on 2. Their bodies appear malformed. Joints bending incorrectly, knees bowing sideways, hips sitting too high on ropey, twisted haunches. Antlers twisting together, growing into each other's skulls like 2 trees fused by a shared wound. One has something resembling a human face growing from the side of its neck. Small, sunken, the eyes half-lidded, the mouth working soundlessly. Caleb doesn't see them. He's looking toward Anthony. The deer are looking at Caleb. We found Wesley's body at 12:03. Again? I don't remember this, but the camera does. He was lying beneath an enormous set of antlers. At first I thought a deer had fallen on him. That's what I told police. Then they showed me the photograph. The antlers weren't attached to an animal. They were growing from the ground, dozens of them pale and slick, thrusting up out of the dirt like something rooted rather than shed. They had pierced Wesley's vest, his abdomen, his legs, looking back. All the photographs before 12:07 feel like someone else's life. But from that moment forward, I remember everything. The animals came from every direction. We couldn't count them. 20, 30, maybe more. The forest moved with antlers, and beneath the antlers, teeth, snapping and grinding, jaws working even when there was nothing yet in them to bite. Greg found Anthony on the ground. Something had torn open the back of his vest, and beneath it, his shoulder blade was visible, white and slick. The muscle around it shredded away in long ribbons. Greg climbed on top of the animal and stabbed it repeatedly with his hunting knife. I counted the strikes later from the photographs, 7 of them, each one driven in with both hands, his whole body weight behind the blade. Caleb photographed that too. Anthony wasn't moving. Greg kept stabbing. The animal stopped moving. Greg kept stabbing. We had to pull him away. His hands wouldn't unclench from the knife handle. I remember having to pry his fingers back one at a time. Then the screaming stopped. Every animal disappeared into the trees. At once. Silence. Marcus turned off the chainsaw. His hands were shaking so badly the blade rattled against the housing even after the engine died. Eric was covered in blood. Not his own, or not all of it. It was impossible to tell where the black fluid ended and the red began on his skin. I remember asking where Wesley was. Nobody answered. That's when Greg pointed toward the access road. There was a man standing there. Black suit, black coat, wide-brimmed hat. He looked completely out of place. His clothes were clean, not a speck of mud. He stood behind Anthony. Anthony was standing again. I need you to understand. I had just seen Anthony's body. I had seen the wound across his back, the exposed bone, the way his chest had stopped rising. I had watched Greg attempt CPR. Anthony wasn't breathing, but now he was standing approximately 40 feet away. The man in the hat rested one hand on Anthony's head. Anthony's neck was bent forward. Something dark poured from his mouth. Too much of it, more than a body should hold, running down his chin and off his jaw in a steady black rope. Eric whispered something. I asked him what he said. He repeated it. That's the 8th man. I didn't understand. Then the man smiled, too wide, the corners of his mouth reaching almost to where his ears should have been, the skin there tearing slightly at the strain, a thin dark seam opening at each corner. Anthony's throat opened, not cut, opened, like a zipper being pulled from the inside, the skin parting in a clean vertical line from his collarbone to his jaw. No blood at first, just black branching shapes pushing up through the gap, slick and glistening, unfurling like something that had been folded tight inside him his whole life and was only now allowed to stretch. Black branches erupted from his neck. Anthony screamed, and the scream came out wrong, doubled like two throats trying to make the same sound a half-second apart. The man held him upright. We watched until Anthony stopped moving. Then the man looked at us and spoke. His voice came from the trees. Every tree, every direction. You removed the door. Eric raised his axe. The man tilted his head. You counted 7. Nobody moved. The man smiled again. You should have counted 8. I don't remember what happened next. The camera shows pieces. One photograph shows the man holding Caleb by the hair. Caleb is alive. His face is badly injured. The skin along one cheek peeled back in a flap. One eye swollen shut, blood threading from his hairline down across his lips. 2 of us are standing in the background, watching, not helping. The next photograph was taken from the ground. Caleb's camera must have fallen. The man is standing over the lens. Something is hanging from his hand. I won't describe it. The police wouldn't show Caleb's family that photograph. The next image is completely black. The timestamp jumps 17 minutes. 12:39 a.m. Eric is standing over Marcus's body. Marcus is face down. What was left of his back had been opened from shoulder to shoulder, the wound so wide and so deep you could see the pale curve of his ribs through it, glistening under the flash. Eric has a chainsaw. Greg is pointing into the forest. The man in the hat is standing behind Eric. Eric doesn't see him. I do. I'm in the photograph. I'm pointing directly at him. Eric turns. The next photograph shows the man's face. It's the clearest image we have. His eyes are white. No iris, no pupil. Just a wet, unbroken white that seemed, even in a still image, to be looking at something past the camera. His skin appears stretched, thin enough in places to see the faint tracery of something dark moving beneath it. There are cuts around his mouth. Old ones, healed wrong, pulling the flesh into a permanent half-grimace. And behind his lips, His teeth aren't human. They're the same teeth as the deer. Police found Greg and me walking along County Road 18 at 6:12 Saturday morning. We were barefoot. Our clothes were covered in blood, so much of it that the responding officer's first report listed both of us as gunshot victims, before anyone had looked closely enough to realize none of it seemed to be ours. Greg had a broken wrist. I had 3 fractured ribs. Neither of us remembered leaving the forest. When police asked where the others were, we couldn't answer. Search teams entered Black Antler Woods that afternoon. They found no hole, no black slab, no deer. They recovered 4 bodies: Wesley, Marcus, Anthony, Eric. The medical examiner's report used the phrase "cause of death undetermined" for all 4. I read it years later after I filed a records request. Wesley's file noted multiple penetrating wounds consistent with antler tines. Origin unknown, no animal DNA recovered at wound sites. Anthony's noted a laceration to the throat, inconsistent with any blade and evidence. I stopped reading after that. Caleb was never found. Neither was the 8th man. The developer cancelled the project. North Valley Forestry closed 6 months later. Greg killed himself in 2015. I stopped working outdoors. For years, I convinced myself the photographs were fake. Some elaborate hallucination. Maybe Caleb altered them. Maybe the trauma damaged my memory. Anything. Anything was better than accepting what I saw. Then, 3 weeks ago, I received a package. No return address. Inside was Caleb's camera, the original camera, the one police said they never recovered. The battery was dead. I charged it. There were 18 new photographs, all taken within the last month. Forests. Different forests: Oregon, Michigan, Maine, Tennessee. I recognized some locations from trail markers. Every photograph showed workers, logging crews, surveyors, construction teams, always entering the woods at night. I counted the people in every image. 7, 7, 7, 7. Then I reached the last photograph. It was taken outside my apartment. I'm standing near my car. I didn't know anyone was watching me. Behind me is a man. Reflective vest, work pants, North Valley jacket, the 8th worker, the one none of us recognized. Except now, I recognize him. It's Caleb, older, thinner, the kind of thin that isn't hunger, more like something had hollowed him out from the inside and left the shape standing. His mouth is closed, but I can see something pushing against the skin of his forehead. 2 symmetrical points, like something underneath his skull is trying to grow out. I haven't left my apartment in 4 days. Last night, I heard something scraping against my bedroom window. I live on the 3rd floor. This morning there were marks in the glass. They looked like antlers. And approximately 20 minutes ago, someone knocked on my door 3 times. I didn't answer. Then I heard Caleb's voice. He said my name. He told me the crew was waiting. I asked him how many. There was silence. Then Caleb laughed. And from the hallway, 7 voices answered together. Count again. Hope you enjoyed another dark story from Dead Air. But before you disappear into the dark, we have a question for you. What's the creepiest thing you've ever experienced in a museum? Maybe you heard footsteps echoing through an empty gallery, saw a figure standing perfectly still, only to realize it was gone when you looked back. Felt like someone's eyes were following you from an old portrait. Or maybe you turned a corner and found yourself completely alone. even though you could have sworn someone was just there. Tell us your story down in the comments, because there's something unsettling about museums. They preserve history. They protect forgotten objects. They hold the belongings of people long gone. And sometimes it makes you wonder if they preserve something else along with them. Who knows? Your experience might inspire a future tape here on VHS After Midnight. Until next time. If a museum exhibit seems to be watching you, don't be the last person to leave the gallery.